Good morning from my side, Małgorzata Bonikowska, the Center for International Relations. Welcome from Poland, Warsaw. We are recording this seminar, this webinar. It's 9th of March. We do it under the series of Europe-Asia Bridge, which is the platform which gives us the chance to discuss important topics for both Europeans and Asians. And today, of course, everybody is focusing on what's happening in Ukraine, but we would like to give to you the different perspective on what we hear every day, the perspective from Japan, and we will focus on China and Chinese reaction to the conflict, but also on trends and generally on the future of China from the Japanese perspective and European perspective. I hope we'll be able to, see both. We have a very, very important guest with us from Tokyo. I'm very happy that we were able really to have you here today with us. Professor Shin Kawashima from Tokyo University. Hello, Professor. Good morning. Good afternoon, actually.
Yeah, good afternoon. Good morning.
Yeah, in Tokyo we have 4 o'clock in the afternoon. We have 8 o'clock in the morning in Poland. So welcome. Professor Kawashima was in Poland just 2 years ago, just before COVID. So he's also aware of what's happening in our region. And to have another perspective at the end of the seminar, I would like to ask also Professor from Warsaw University, Professor Jakub Zajączkowski, to give to us the European perspective. Jakub, hello, good morning.
Hello, good morning. Good morning.
But before we start, we do the event jointly with the Embassy of Japan to Warsaw. So let me welcome His Excellency, Ambassador of Japan to Poland, Mr. Akio Miyajima. Good morning.
Good morning,
Mr. Ambassador. And let me just maybe give the floor to you at the beginning to open this webinar.
Thank you very much, Professor. Dzień dobry. My name is Akio Miyajima, the Ambassador to Poland from Japan. I'm very, very happy to be on this webinar, especially when we are witnessing really dreadful, horrendous kind of the invasion by Russia in the neighboring country, Ukraine. This invasion and an aggression that changed the whole security structure in Europe, but not only just Europe, but it affected the security environment globally, including the East Asia and Indo-Pacific. And today, with the wonderful special guest, the speaker, Professor Kawashima, that we can learn and discuss deeply on China. This is very, very timely, I think. And as we know that there's a kind of the phenomenon of the China-Russia nexus, and then the February the 4th in Beijing, at the time of the Olympic, everybody watched what happened between two leaders, China and Russia. And then the Chinese leaders expressed that they are against the expansion of NATO. And then China also basically supported Russian positions. But at the same time, that it seemed to have to maintain the position that respecting the sovereignty and territorial integrity. And then it seems that they are very carefully watching the situation in Ukraine. My guess is that they are expecting that as a result of this conflict, whatever happens, that maybe that the Russia is going to be weaker and more dependent on China. And then that will be strategically beneficial to them. And Japan has been promoting that the free and FOIP, the international rule order, kind of the international law-based international order with a country like the United States and like-minded countries. Foreign Minister Motegi visited Japan, visited Warsaw, and then have a V4 plus Japan meeting. And Japan also promoting Quad with India as well. And So we really believe that to maintain and promote this FOIP or Quad kind of concept and vision is going to be more and more important. Just getting back to Ukraine, that Foreign Minister Hayashi had a phone conversation with the Foreign Minister Rao on the 26th of February. And on March the 2nd, Prime Minister Kishida had a phone call with Mr. Morawiecki. And then the place that Japan's strong the condemnation against this, try to change the status quo by force unilaterally. And then we made a commitment once again that to work in tandem with the international community. And then we believe that well, this is a huge challenge, which is maybe tectonic change in the global order. And then we really need to work closely with countries like Poland, which is close ally to the United States, and then like us, that the neighbor of Russia. And then, so I hope that today's seminar is a wonderful kind of contribution to deepening understanding of the China, and also the deepening kind of the dialogue on what is happening, and then promoting cooperation between Japan and Europe and the United States in this very difficult world. Thank you very much. Looking forward to have a wonderful, very, very stimulating discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Ambassador. Thank you all who joined us now live. But let's start with Professor Kawashima's opening lecture for us, a presentation he prepared. And after that, it will be followed by our discussion. Professor Kawashima.
Yeah, thank you so much, Professor. It's my great honor, my pleasure to be here to discuss about China, Chinese policy toward Europe or the Ukraine situation. Actually, and it's also happy for me to come to Warsaw again. As the moderator said, before COVID-19, it's my last trip, foreign trip to the Warsaw, the March 2020, not 2019, yeah. Originally, I would made an open lecture at the Warsaw University, but because of the COVID-19, the open lecture changed to be the closed seminar. Yeah, it's very, very unfortunate, but it's my great memory. And also the last 2 years ago, you were planning to visit Japan. At that time, the Japanese government invited me to join the dinner party. Yes, at that time I also joined the party. That party is my good memory. Yes, so it's my pleasure and my happy to come back to Warsaw again. Thank you. So I'll share my PPT to this presentation. So today I talk about the Chinese foreign policy from the two parts. The first is about the Chinese diplomacy for Ukraine problem, so Russia's aggression toward Ukraine. Yes, Chinese attitude is so crucial, important for this situation. Secondly, the China's general foreign policy and the UN, Japan, and response to them. China's diplomacy for Ukraine problem. Maybe this topic, you understand much more than me. So I really hope to exchange the observation Chinese policy toward Ukraine situation. Yes, first of all, about the China's policy for Russia's aggression to Ukraine, especially about the Sino-Russian relations. This is the statement of Minister of Foreign Affairs Wang Yi yesterday, March 8th, yesterday. Wang Yi said, at first, Russia and China were the prominent member of the UN Security Council, that's right. And Russia is the most important close neighborhood country and a strategic partner, Wang Yi said. Thirdly, Russian and China relations is the crucial bilateral relation in the world, he said. Yeah. And in 2021, 20 years anniversary of Sino-Russia relationship and cooperation treaty they did. So he strengthened the some good importance and important relationship and something crucial relationship and so on. So yes, for Chinese point of view, Russia is a so important country. As you know, China has a hybrid ranks of foreign countries at their point of view. The most high-ranked country is Russia, or Russia and Pakistan, right? And Sino-Russian relations has independent and autonomous value, and build a base of non-ally, non-confrontation, non-opposition to the third countries, and must not accept interfere and disturbance from other countries. So China's strength and China and Russia do not accept any influence from other country, maybe US or EU, I don't know whether Wang Yi strengthened this point. And both Russia and China are opposite to the Cold War consciousness and any trial to stimulate ideological conflicts, he said. And even though the international atmosphere is getting uneasy, China and Russia keep strategic partner and advance whole strategic partnership in new era. So Wang Yi said, even though the international atmosphere, maybe including the Ukraine situation, is getting more uneasy, China and Russia keeps strategic partner. China does not change, Russia also does not change. That's also the point. This partnership. Okay, this is the point. Then how about the China-Ukraine relationship? Yes. Superficially, China has good relations with Russia. China keeps the Russian side standpoint. However, from a Chinese point of view, Ukraine is so important country. You know, Ukraine sells a series of weapons toward China. Wang Yi said, we must keep and respect UN Charter's concept and the principle, and respect and guarantee the sovereignty and territorial wholeness. Yes, at this time, Wang Yi did not say, however, last time Xi Jinping mentioned, including Ukraine. Okay. And between China and Ukraine, there are a series of joint communique and statement and treaty. For example, 1992 statement said China provides security for Ukraine when other country uses nuclear weapon or provide threat by nuclear weapon. Yeah, now that Russia uses the nuclear weapon to provide some threat towards Russia, Ukraine, at that time China provides security for Ukraine. Treaty said. So it's a big point. However, Wang Yi and other top leaders do not mention this treaty, but Chinese people know it. So on the Chinese website, scholars and others, some intellectual mention this treaty to talk about what's the meaning of this treaty. Generally speaking, Chinese officers said that this treaty is not specific meaning, it's a so general one. Let's explain it. However, diplomats in China now do not mention this treaty. We have to study it. What's the meaning or what is Chinese attitude on this treaty? And the point that China becomes the mediation for peace. Wang Yi said, China promotes dialogue among relating countries. China is trying to promote dialogue secretly. The President Xi made a meeting with President Putin on the next day of Russia's aggression, the starting of the operation. Yeah, he used this phrase. Russia starting the operation and asked Putin to make a dialogue as soon as possible with Ukraine. The President Putin answered it positively. So China strengthened China's contribution to the dialogue between, opening the dialogue between Ukraine and Russia. And also he said, Wang Yi said, China must stop the humanitarian crisis. Yeah, there are so many explanations. From a Chinese point of view, there are other points. Actually, recently in this 10 years or 15 years, Chinese government takes importance on the Chinese people in foreign countries, their safety, their status. So China is interested in the Chinese in Ukraine now. So the Chinese government ordered the Chinese embassy to Ukraine and other organization to protect them. And also the Chinese government ordered the embassies and the consul general offices at the surrounding country of the Ukraine to accept that yes, Chinese people from Ukraine, yeah, and send them to the China. So China advances dialogue and the communication with surrounding country of Ukraine. So as you know, yesterday, the Wang Yi did the telephone meeting with the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Hungary. Yeah, so maybe tomorrow or in this week, China will advance so many a series of meetings with the Chinese country, including Poland, I think. Then how about the China and the European relations? It's so interesting. Actually, China separated the policy for EU and NATO, separated so clearly. So China recognized that China and Europe are two big powers to keep the peace in the world. So who is bad? USA, okay? US and the allies, and also, yeah, maybe Russia. But China and Europe, okay, are the two big powers to keep the peace in the world, he said. Wang Yi said. And China expressed Europe as independent actor. Independent of what? USA, okay. So China really does not like the Europe under the USA, under Russia. So China really likes the independent Europe. So it is, I can say, it seems that China's so-called mischief-making policy between US and Europe. Okay. This is China generally likes such a policy. Really, in East Asia, China advanced such a mischief-making policy between Japan and USA, Japan and South Korea, and so on. So under this concept, China, France, and Germany meeting among the Xi Jinping and the top leader of Germany and France yesterday, and the EU, China and the EU meeting among the Prime Minister of Foreign Affairs, maybe Wang Yi and others. So this meeting yesterday, Wang Yi, Macron, and the new Germany leader make the meeting online, and they certificate some principle on the issue: sovereignty, important sovereignty, humanitarian crisis, and the mediation for peace, and so on. And China is opposite to the financial and economic sanction for Russia. So China, yes, intend to persuade the European Union to stop the sanction for Russia. Maybe meaningless, however, it's a clear Chinese point of standpoint. China's view on NATO is so negative. On the summit between Xi Jinping and Putin on February 4th, Xi Jinping expressed opposition to the NATO's eastern expansion, as Ambassador Miyajima said. It's clear China recognizes EU is one of the big power in the world, as well as China, to making peace in the world. However, China has strong opposite attitude towards NATO. So it's interesting. In East Asia, in the Indo-Pacific, China said, China recognizes 2, 3, 4, 5 frameworks. The 2 is China, USA and some allies. Third is a AUKUS, okay, US, Australia, and Britain. And the 4 is Quad, US, Australia, India, Japan. And the 5 is the 5 Eyes, Anglo-Saxon 5 countries. Frameworks in the Pacific are the base for formation of NATO in this region, in India Pacific. So NATO has the strongest negative image in China. So China, as Chris said, Japan is now, yes, making a new East Asian NATO in this region. Yeah. So this framework of NATO is that so, yeah, welcomed by China. So China usually said that NATO is under just Cold War ideology. Yeah. So if you make dialogue through the NATO, this framework, China will reject it. However, if you make dialogue with China through the EU, this framework, China welcome. So China wants to separate NATO and the EU. Yeah, it's so clear, interesting. And how about the voting trend in the United Nations? And as you know, when the United States proposed its resolution to blame the Russia's aggression toward Ukraine, only 5 countries disagreed with it. Russia and Syria, Eritrea, North Korea, and Belarus, 5. However, as you know, these are pink countries, including China, Mongolia, India, and so on, and Iran and other countries, not disagree. Yeah, they did not vote it. So China does not agree and disagree between Russia and Ukraine. So yeah, this is so interesting. China does not express China is perfectly at the Russian side. China cannot agree on the US side. Cannot disagree US proposal. And also it is interesting, US and the Western countries successfully get majority of the UN General Assembly. So General Assembly is so important for Chinese diplomacy. Actually, China strengthened the importance of the UN, and also China can, a majority at the General Assembly. Because in the General Assembly, there are so many developing countries, like a G77 country. So it's a so stimulating situation. Western countries get majority in the General Assembly on this problem. So it's so shocking for China, I think. However, if you see the pink countries, this distribution is basically similar to the one belt, one road area. What is China's annoyances on this embarrassment by the Chinese Ukrainian state? First of all, I think the opposing axis, the confrontation, a point of confrontation is changing now. Actually, before Ukraine incident, China's perception was that Western and the US world order against Chinese world order. Western world order is injustice, US-centric, US is a liberal democracy, US some value, cannot welcome, cannot get the majority in the world, because the most of developing countries do not support USA's point of view. Only advanced countries can support it, US the value. And also US Central Security Network is Cold War consciousness. This is the Chinese criticism. To the contrary, China can provide more broad-minded value. Each country has each democracy. Okay, developing country can adopt its own way to express democracy. it's okay. So liberal democracy is not majority. This is the only advanced country adopted. And also Xi Jinping strengthened the importance of development. For developing country, development is more important than so-called Western values. So such a liberal democracy and some development or liberal democracy or much more broad-minded value, such a, access is the point that China imagined before COVID-19. However, after the Russia's aggression towards Ukraine, the axis is moving because Russia did so-called interfering of sovereignty. As you know, Chinese principle of diplomacy includes the importance of sovereignty. So China cannot agree fully on Russia's point of view. Yes, Russia is a strategic partner of China. However, Russia's aggression, China cannot agree. As a big, so sensitive point. And however, President Biden says this is the confrontation between authoritarian state and the democratic states. So actually the access is some sovereignty problem. However, Biden said this access is authoritarian and democratic. So the Biden seeks to combine or seeks to put China as the Russian side. Or they are the authoritarian state. They are different from us. It's possible for authoritarian states to make aggression towards the other country. This is the Biden scope. However, China cannot accept the Biden scope. So China strengthens its own differences from Russia. China and Russia is different. This is Chinese expression now. However, Russia is so important partner, strategic partner of China. So I did great. So on the voting activity, voting behavior as a UN, China does not agree USA. China does not agree fully with Russia. And also this year is a so sensitive year for Chinese domestic policy. On this autumn, the second Chinese Central Party's Party Congress, Xi Jinping will extend his term of the top leader to the third period. So it's so sensitive. So Xi Jinping must not fail anything this year. So he is so deliberate. Somebody said, this case, Ukraine case, is good implication for China. Or somebody said, China is also, it is possible for China to make any operation toward Taiwan simultaneously with Russia. However, it's not impossible. Yes, we know China learns so many from this incident, Russia's aggression toward Ukraine. So, and also China understands so many things. For example, Russia's risk. Russia is a good friend, but Russia really did operation toward Ukraine. And also China learns and understands the menu of sanctions of Western countries and its effect and the limitation. SWIFT and other economic sanctions on. And also effects and difficulties of military aggression, new gray zone, cyber attack and so on, and others. So a series of attack, a wave attack. And China, for Chinese point of view, actually this the number 4 is most important, I think. Actually, yes, Ukraine was invaded, and Ukraine also, wanted to apply for EU, and the EU said, welcome, you're coming. So China can imagine when China makes aggression toward Taiwan, Taiwan requests other country to recognize Taiwan as independent country, Taiwan, not ROC. Other country will, yes, recognize it, Taiwan, as independent country as Taiwan. So such this Ukraine incident, Ukraine situation, makes China, provides China learn so many, I think. Yeah. So China will be much more deliberate. Yes, from the CCP's point of view, Russia's policy toward Ukraine on some so-called unification policy is not enough, and also penetrating policy is not enough. Maybe China is now advancing the penetration policy at the gray zone toward Taiwan. So China maybe recognize, China understands China must complete such a penetrating policy toward Taiwan. China will use the somewhat more hard device toward Taiwan. That is my observation on the Chinese point of view, Chinese view on the Ukraine situation. I move to the second point. China's general foreign policy and the EU and Japan. Maybe you also understand this Chinese point of view, but yes, I have to mention this personal issue. As I said, this year, the PPT, CCP's, the 20th Party Congress, the Xi Jinping's personal matters will be decided. This is the most important thing this year for China. So one of the most big point is whether Xi Jinping extend his post as General Secretary of CCP, or Xi Jinping becomes the president of the party. It's different. So if he is the top so-called General Secretary, he cannot decide anything by himself. Or in the top 7, right? 4 tops agreement, Xi Jinping can decide. However, if Xi Jinping becomes the president of the party, other 6 tops will be against Xi Jinping. But Xi Jinping say, yes, it's a yes. So if Xi Jinping becomes the president of the party, Xi Jinping gets some definite, so strong power like Mao Zedong. Right. So as a crucial point, the Xi Jinping erased the mandatory retirement policy. Now that China adopted 68 years old, but Xi Jinping will be exceptional. But after, except Xi Jinping, this policy will be efficient or toward other leaders. So among the top 7 leaders, only Li Zhangshu and Han Zheng, these 2 leaders will leave their post, maybe. So Li Keqiang stay in the top 7 leader. But I don't know, but many Chinese media said Li Keqiang will downgrade to the 3rd to succeed to the post of the Li Zhangshu. Yeah, and also Han Zheng will be, it's possible for Han Zheng to stay in the top 8. Then Wang Jishan is still the member of the top 8. So institutionally, there are only top 7. However, at some meetings, Wang Jishan also owns the chair. Okay. One of the chairs. Everybody said he is a top 8, number 8 leader. So it's possible for Han Zheng, it will be the top, the number 8 leader as like Wang Jishan after this autumn. So the 2 of 7 posts will be vacant. So who enter? Who got the two bars? It's a big point. I don't know. Yes, the Chinese media and the Chinese media in Taiwan, Hong Kong, and Singapore, yes, prospects that 丁薛祥、李希、李祥、申明娥、胡春华, yes, they will be the candidate for the two bars. I don't know. This is, yes, this is, I propose only list only. Okay, and about the National People's Congress that is held this month, right? What do you think the most important topic for the National People's Congress this year? Social security and the development of the villages and the reformation of education and others. No diplomacy, no foreign policy, no BRI, no Taiwan. So everybody, most of Chinese people are interested in such their lives or economy. So if you check the reports, governmental reports of this year of the National People's Congress, Li Keqiang strengthened Chinese policy on this, yeah, people's lives in China. Actually, the called prosperity policy, China strengthened their socialistic policy towards their life. However, we have to mention digital infrastructure, this new policy. China intends to advance building the digital infrastructure effectively, Xi Jinping said. But this policy gets the prosperity gap, okay, much harder, actually. So Chinese government strengthened the importance of called prosperity. Yeah, this is some contradict policy. Another Xi Jinping strengthened the party leadership in this 10 years. This year at the National People's Congress, Li Keqiang also strengthened this point. Xi Jinping advances the party leadership through the laws. Xi Jinping organized new committees, so many committees to manage all policy fields. And also Xi Jinping himself becomes the core of the party. This Congress, on this month, this Congress decided new regulation to make the Central Committee of CCP control the provincial level or prefectural level, and much of the village level, well, not village, town level Congress. So China wants to change CCP or government gets some loyalty from the all level of the government. And Chinese government, central government, wants to penetrate into the base of society. This is a new situation. And from a Chinese point of view, there are so many new slogans, new important phrases to advance their policy. For example, national security and people democracy and the poverty problem and so on. National security, Japan also strengthen it. How does China use these phrases? For example, national security. Okay, China strengthened the importance of national security more than economic development, and said now that Western countries some project at Hong Kong is so effective, and China, US, and other Western countries, so-called color revolution is now emerging at Hong Kong. If at Hong Kong, a so-called color revolution will be successfully done, it's a big crisis for Chinese nation. So it's necessary for China to make the Hong Kong national security law. And also there in Xinjiang province, there are some terrorist organization. So China must set some censorship system at Xinjiang to control, manage all people there. So China uses these slogans to advance on many policies. And about the poverty problem. So for example, Chinese government prompts the Uyghur people to work as a cotton farm to solve the poverty problem, they said. Yeah. So yeah, it seems good. However, there are so many problems. Digital politics, Xi Jinping got the digital devices to control society. Yeah, Chinese CCP government grabs the trend of public opinion through the big data, and China says some censorship, and to get the anti-government or anti-party movement through the individual data, through the Alibaba and others. However, is it possible to say that Chinese new SNS system, SNS network, provides a new chance for the Chinese democratization? Yeah, it's a sensitive problem. For example, this is a case that the one woman was both, okay, and in a Hubei province, but some SNS, yes, pointed out that there's so many public opinion, yes, criticizing such a situation under the Beijing Olympic. So the government also, yes, is compelled to solve it. Yeah, so we can find a little bit some possibilities on the Chinese SNS. Yes, it's just so interesting, but we have to be deliberate to analyze it. Then Xi Jinping administration is so strong, so nobody is against it. No. What's the meaning of this picture? This is 疫情反控. These are papers or the commands from the Central Committee to the society, to the many lower level of the Central Party, Communist Party. But 不作为, 慢作为, 乱作为. This Chinese character means that lower level Chinese Communist Party accepted the commands from the top. However, lower level do not do anything. Sabotage. So central government said that we have to criticize you. We blame for you. What the meaning? Xi Jinping is strong, that's right, at the center of the CCP, at the capital. However, their command is not, yes, efficient at the local society. Because the anti-corruption movement and others, the most of middle level and lower level Chinese CCP's bureaucrats, they are so afraid, they are so frightened, so strongly. If they do anything, they will be blamed. So they on the sabotage. And social complaints, yeah, intellectual and local leaders, sabotage and others, they are so not so loyalistic. And the CCP Central Committee intends to mobilize the CCP members' loyalty. So since Chinese government at CCP requires the member of the CCP to express loyalty towards Xi Jinping and the Central Committee. Diplomacy, Eurasian relation. Actually, from Chinese point of view, China hopes to advance its national power under the flat law without any friction until 2049. This is the 100th anniversary of the foundation of the PLC. China, when China got the great dream of recovery come true. Yeah, so China strengthened the peace and the coexistence cooperation with USA. If USA, yes, disturbs Chinese development, is a big problem for China, Chinese rise. So Xi Jinping administration expected to share the new types of relations of great power with the United States at the period of Obama. However, Biden rejected. Big problem for China. So recently, China does not use this new types of relations of great power. However, China does not like US security policy with allies, competitive policies on values and the decoupling policy on the high-spec technology, but China rarely welcomes and hopes to widen the cooperating sphere on the climate changes, regional issues like Iran problem, North Korea, Afghanistan, and others. Because the Biden administration said that USA wants to make cooperation with China on climate change, or Mr. Kerry went to China, and also the regional issues. So from a Chinese point of view, on 2021, USA was approaching to China. US's attitude was getting more soft and soft. This is Chinese point of view. That's interesting. So how is the Chinese perception of the international order? In 2014, Xi Jinping administration decided the foreign policy as a central committee on the foreign affairs. Except for the new types of relations of the great power, as I said, Xi administration decided its primary policy on diplomacy. First is respect for UN. And also Xi Jinping adopted the so-called new types of international relations. What's that? Based on economic win-win relations with a country and get the partnership with each countries. And also based on the networks of partnership, getting world people, community sharing a common destiny. Well, it's ambiguous concept. However, China does not mention the so-called democratic peace that the Western countries really like. So China proposed its own image of the international order, and opposite to U.S. Central Security Network, opposite to Western values. This is the point, different from Hu Jintao period. At the Hu Jintao period, China did not propose its own original image of the international order. However, Xi Jinping started creating or expressing the Chinese way, Chinese images of international order. It's not enough. However, it is change. About Taiwan or Japan, recently, under the COVID-19, Chinese PLA military's activity was getting more harder and harder. Do you know this picture? Last year, China, Russia joint Navy fleet went through the Tsugaru Canal between Hokkaido and Honshu. That's so, stimulating picture for Japanese. Oh, the Japanese has Cold War period about the Soviet Union, maybe at the Vladivostok, right? So it's a new situation. And also this picture is the Chinese public vessels at the territorial water and the connecting water of Senkaku Diaoyu Islands. The number of the public vessels to enter the connecting water, the territorial water is also, increasing. About Taiwan, yes. So yes, maybe there's some images. China is now advancing a policy of unification. However, on a conversation level, Xi Jinping himself mentioned the unified Taiwan by military power on January 2019. However, after that, Xi Jinping did not mention to use military power to unify Taiwan. So the tone level of his oral explanation is downgrade after 2019. Yes, on the COVID-19, the military action, military activity of PLA around Taiwan is getting more harder and harder. However, Xi Jinping himself, his expression is downgrade. And also Taiwan's Ministry of Defense also said that at their report, China really likes the a unified Taiwan without military attack, military confrontation. So China uses military power to show their power, their capability toward Taiwan. However, they use the gray zone penetrating policy through the cyber and others to get the supporters of Taiwanese to push the unification with PLC China. This is the analysis of the Ministry of Defense of Taiwan. Now finishing my presentation. Thank you so much for your cordial attention. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Kawashima. It was really interesting perspective, rarely heard. We already have 2 questions put on chat, but I'm just opening the Q&A session right now. You can also put questions individually if you just, signal that you want to do that. But let me maybe start with the questions already put. The first one is about this 1992 commitment of China. If you can say more about it, because it's not very well known. And the question would be why or wouldn't be worth to speak up about it a little bit more, to pressure China to be more active in the peace talks, now around Ukraine. And why, in your opinion, President Zelensky didn't really mention this yet, or doesn't mention it yet? Professor.
Yes, about the first question, yes, they are. If you check the website of the Chinese Ministry of Foreign Affairs of China, maybe you cannot find it. If you check on all of Chinese website, I don't know at present it's okay. You can find it in a Chinese version. Okay, and as you know, if China had a formal relation with Ukraine in 1992, maybe, and at that time, China and Ukraine concluded a series of statements and something treaties. So it's so easy for you to the website or the Baidu or something. It's everything okay. You can find it. Secondly, about the contents. I mentioned that the PPT, if Ukraine had some threat from the by the nuclear weapon, or some country uses a nuclear weapon, China will provide security for Ukraine. So I think it is not meaning China provides so-called nuclear umbrella towards Ukraine. It's not. However, so then what is the meaning of this treaty? So some Chinese scholar said that this is the only general one. That's not a specific meaning, as he said. However, it is right. So, and also after Russia's aggression, Chinese diplomats, Chinese government did not mention this treaty. Yeah, so it's so suspicious. Yeah, there's this treaty is not so good for China at present. So if you can get some Ukrainian language version or I don't know, Russian language, I don't know, but it's more better. If you combine the Chinese version and Ukrainian language version, it's more good, better for us to find the correct meaning. This is my answer to the first question.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much for this really exciting presentation and extremely insightful. I have two questions. One is on on the Summit of Democracies that President Biden was hosting. And I don't mean the event itself, because for obvious reasons, there wasn't nothing like a big event. It was more a process. My question is more about the approach in general. How do you believe, how useful is this approach that is considered, well, a contribution to the consolidation of the democratic countries in opposition or in competition with the authoritarian countries? However, critics say that the side effects of this concept are, well, let's say, neutrally relevant. I wonder, what is your assessment of how useful this approach is for managing the relationship with China? And my second question is on China and the EU. You said that you were talking about China, the EU, and the Chinese vision of the EU as an independent actor. However, it is obvious, even if you are very EU enthusiastic, as I am, by the way, the EU is not a political entity that can be considered a competitor in this global game. So when the Chinese, or when you speak about China and the EU, what is the EU? Is it the European Commission, the European institutions, or is it a group of individual states? And how is China managing this difficult relationship between the member states, especially those who are, well, politically ambitious, and the European institutions?
Thank you so much. I answer for the first question. It's so interesting, stimulating question. Yes, as you know, this so-called democratic summit was held in the USA and hosted by the President Biden, and also China held one a online congress meeting on the democracy. Actually, the more than 100 countries joined the Chinese meeting on a democracy. What's the point? I think if United States intends to get the majority in the world on this democracy, it's better for the Western countries. However, USA did not invite Thailand, did not invite other so-called gray zone countries. What is the gray zone countries? The countries are facing with some crisis on democracy as a domestic policy. As you know, Thailand is now so waving now. Is facing with a big problem on democracy. So if USA wants to get any majority in the world, USA must invite such countries they are facing with democracy in domestic policy. It's better for us. However, USA did not. So China invited these countries to join the meeting of democracy. And the Chinese Xi Jinping said, each country has its own democracy. So Xi Jinping does not use so-called liberal democracy that USA Biden said. So Chinese definition of democracy is much more lower than USA's. I think it's the importance for us to pay attention to the developing countries in Asia and African countries, in Asia and Africa. How do they see this axis between USA and China? So USA provides the much more better chances, or much more attractive conversation to these countries, or China is providing a much more attractive phrase towards this country. As on the democracy summit of democracy, or the meeting of democracy on the last December, I think Chinese phrase is more attractive for these countries. So it's I think the USA's way is not was not efficient to make to create some majority. However, at the General Assembly at UN last month, USA proposed the resolution and gets the majority at the General Assembly. Because the most of countries do not accept the Russian aggression. Okay, so this setting of the resolution is good. However, so that China was surprised that Western countries, or like the USA, got the majority at the General Assembly, I think. So it is now this competition between the USA and China is just how do they get the majority in the world? So is my point. Secondly, terribly sorry, and Chinese text, Chinese documents do not say so clear the meaning of the EU or OMON in Chinese. The committee or the individual country, it's not so, it's difficult for us to clarify the meaning of each OMON in Chinese. It's terribly, so it's a little bit difficult for me. But I guess each word has each meaning, I think. So we have to check the English version or the other language version for the Chinese, but most of the documents do not have any English version, so it is difficult. So if they open the English version, we'll check it. Thank you.
Thank you. We have questions on the chat. Let me just read the question number 1 from Bruno Surdel. It's about the perspective to put in Japan the American nuclear deterrent. So what is your opinion on that? How far Japan can go in this? And how can we, the second question is, how can we interpret Japan's quick condemnation of Russia's invasion in Ukraine vis-a-vis the problem Japan has with Russia about the Kuril Islands? How do you see the connection, the Ukraine invasion and the perspective of the issue between Japan and Russia?
Yes, the former Prime Minister Abe mentioned the new possibilities on the nuclear policy for Japan and the USA. But maybe I don't know his intention, but I guess he want to enhance the level of the protest Japan from the nuclear threat from the surrounding country, and also Japan cannot possess the nuclear weapon by the constitution and others. So Shinzo Abe proposed some possible way, but as you know, I don't know whether it is possible for Japanese government to do under the interpretation of the president of the constitution now, and also in public opinion, somebody agreeing on Abe's proposal but it's not a majority, I think. About the second question, may we interpret Japan's quick condemnation of Russia's invasion of Ukraine and imposing harsh sanctions on Moscow in this way to Tokyo recognize issue of northern territory? Yes, in Japan, there's so many demonstrations in Tokyo to be against Russia's aggression to support Ukraine. So, so many people are interested in this incident. Yeah, and also the many Japanese made donation to the Ukrainian people to support them, and so on. And about the this Korea Island problem, actually the most of northern, not most, all of northern territories occupied by Russia in 1945. So if the Japan control the territory, the northern territories, and Russia's, it's possible for Russia to attack it. Japan will have a strong sympathy toward the Ukraine situation. But yeah, so maybe it is much more closer to the Ukraine situation, the Senkaku Taui issue in the islands. Senkaku Taui Islands are the maybe under the Japan's control, basically, or the both Japan and China. So and also China, it's possible for China to attack it. So yeah, so the change of the situation by the power, military power, this point of view, for Japanese maybe imagine the Senkaku Taui Islands case, I think.
I see that Ambassador Miyajima wants to add something. Please go ahead.
Yes, of course. For us, Japan and Japanese people, the unlawful occupation by Russia on those northern territories is a very serious issue. And we have been trying to have a negotiation with the peaceful treaty with Russia and try to get it back. And then so that we spent awful amount of effort, and then so it was not, it is still remained very important, one of the top priority foreign policy issue for us Japanese. But given that this very serious challenge posed by Russia to Ukrainian aggression, we considered this is the matter that which very negatively affect the international order with not only just Europe, but also Indo-Pacific. That's why that this time, Japanese government decided to join the voice of international community as a G7 country. And then so, but it doesn't mean that, well, we think light of this territorial issue with Russia. But given the very, very serious nature of this current situation, we decided to take this very effective, strong sanction measures against Russia and also Belarus. So I think this is where we are, and we are standing together with the Poland and the other countries with Ukrainian friends. Yes, that's where we are.
And I think we can put now the final question on the chat. That's also the last moment for you to put some question. Professor Andrzej Mania has a question. So maybe Professor, you go first, and then we will close with the questions from the chat.
Professor, thank you very much for the inspiration which I got from your presentation. Let me ask one question. I've been searching in different think tanks, universities, and publication by media about eventual new role of China during the crisis in Ukraine. There are some authors who are suggesting that China might be maybe in the nearest future will be more active because they do not have the intention to support Russian next step. Next step is very dangerous. Next step is a war between Russia and NATO. That we may expect that China will definitely push Putin to stop the action. They eventually ready to accept the swallowing of Ukraine or part of Ukraine, but not to starting the war against NATO. This is why there are authors who believe that Putin in the nearest future will be under pressure from China not to go farther. Is it true? What do you think about this opinion? Thank you.
Thank you. Interesting. I think from Chinese point of view, it's so dangerous for China to push Russia much more or to push US on the European side. China will it will adopt a much more modest expression, modest activity among the US, EU, and Russia and Ukraine, I think. Because at first, this year, it is so sensitive for Chinese domestic policy. If China, Xi Jinping administration does much more, too much, it's not good for Xi Jinping's extension of his post in this autumn. And I don't know, which will China push Putin much more or stop the Putin too strongly? It will be a big disaster, a big incident, big change for Chinese diplomacy. So Xi Jinping administration really worry his or this administration force, fail to do anything other any policies. So I think this is Xi Jinping administration will be deliberate to make anything this year, I think. So
thank you, Professor. Last question I can see is from Tomasz Gerlach. Dr. Tomasz Gerlach, please.
Thank you very much for this informative presentation, Professor. But what I missed in this presentation is in these circumstances, if you can comment, what is the public opinion in Japan regarding the change of the constitution to make it to enable Japan to be more defensive out of Japan also, and especially in the context that defense of Taiwan is integral to the security of Japan. And we know that Japan is intensifying its security engagement with Taiwan through American mostly, but changing of the constitution, I think, would enable Japan to be more active and more independent as regards formulation of its policy. Now, we know that Japan is developing electromagnetic railgun, which would target hypersonic missiles, but it is still defensive and not active engagement in this very vital for Japan security problem. How to defend Taiwan.
Thank you. Very, very important, crucial question. First of all, the Kishida administration plans to revise the national security strategy this year. And also the new laws about the economic security will be passed at the congresses. So this year, the Kishida will advance a series of pack of the laws and the new strategies, including and among concerning about the security. Yes. Secondly, about the constitution. Actually, there's so many Japanese congressmen and Japanese public opinion are sensitive and deliberate to change it, revise it. Recently, Japanese Congress is discussing about the one article on the Constitution. Is it possible to open the meeting of the Congress by the online? Actually, at present, Japanese Constitution decided that the Congress will be held the human to human, face to face. It's impossible to hold the meeting online. So, however, a Congressperson decided, yes, not they did not change the Constitution itself. They devised the interpretation of the Constitution itself. Okay. And also, as you mentioned about Taiwan, yes, it's a crucial problem. Yeah. However, several years ago, Prime Minister Abe, Abe's administration proposed the new laws of the security. The new laws was passed as a Congress, and the so-called collective self-defense was also permitted at the Congress. So now that Japan can do some menus to incorporate so-called Taiwan incident in the future. So now that at present, Prime Minister Kishida administration will be they will decide to join or not under the new laws of security, I think. So Kishida administration is not so positive to revise the constitution, I think.
Thank you. The last question would be generally about the future of the relations between Japan and Ukraine and Europe from one side, and Russia also on the other side, because here we read that Japan is going deeper into the direct help to Ukraine, sending helmets, bulletproof vests, etc. So how do you see the developments in the future of these relations, Professor?
Mm-hmm. Yes, I'm not specialist in Japanese diplomacy, but yes, actually, for Japanese point of view, Japan-EU economic relation is so important because the USA is not a member of CPTPP, and USA is a little bit negative to join such a free trade system now. So Japan and the EU is a good partner to make a new framework of the economy and the global financial economic system. And Ukraine, yes, Japan, yes, can do as possible as Japan can, but as you know, Japan also has a sensitive relation with Russia, including territorial issues. So at this moment, Kishida administration does some sanction and including some strict way. This is the most not crucial, but the strongest way that Japan can adopt, I think. But yes, actually, Kishida decided it is possible for Japan to advance the negotiation about the territorial issues with Russia in the near future, because Japan makes a sanction towards Russia. Russia will reject the Japanese negotiation with Japan, but Kishida decided. So it is first. Secondly, for example, Russia's natural gas is also important for Japan, actually. As you know, at the Sakhalin Island and the Siberia gas is provided to Japan. So energy issues also crucial for Japan. But Japan also I think it's possible Japan cut off the import of the Russian natural gas. So it is a big decision, and to cooperate with European countries and the United States and other international society to be against such aggression from Russia to Ukraine.
So thank you, Professor. I would come back to this issue to close the seminar, and I will put it to Ambassador Miyajima. But before doing that, I would like Professor Zajączkowski to briefly tell us about the European perspective on China and on the conflict as well.
Thank you very much, Małgorzata. Thank you very much, President, for inviting me to comment and to give some feedback. And it is great pleasure that I could take part in today's seminar. And I would like to thank Professor Kawashima for a very interesting presentation. And I would like to underline that especially I fully agree with you that for China, today's situation, war in Ukraine is a big problem. And we should take into account in this context two aspects. The first aspect, it is Indo-Pacific, and the second aspect, we should analyze this more in a broader sense in the context of future of China and Russia as a power. So let's very briefly focus on the first aspect, Indo-Pacific. So I think, and I fully agree with Professor Kawashima, war in Ukraine strengthened not only relations between European Union, Japan, and US in the context of Moscow. It is not only strengthened the joint approach towards Moscow, but even more important, the war in Ukraine strengthened the coherent vision of United States, the European Union, and Japan in the context of a global order, strengthen relations, transatlantic relations. And in this context, referring to the question of Ambassador Reiter, I think China is fully aware that war in Ukraine only strengthened the vision of Biden. When Biden came to power, Biden was aware that anti-China rhetoric, which was proposed by Donald Trump, was a big mistake, and it was a problem for Quad members. The very anti-China rhetoric was a big problem for Japan, for Australia, for European Union. Situation has changed when Biden came to power. And I would like only to put stress that European Union adopted a new strategy towards Indo-Pacific in 2021 in September. And this strategy is fully correspond with what Biden said. And Biden tried to underline this two vision. Would like to underline this two vision of international relations, two vision of global order, democratic versus authoritarian regimes. So go beyond China, go beyond anti-China rhetoric. And China is aware that war in Ukraine only strengthen European Union and the United States and Japan relations. And in this context, because Professor Kawashima, you told about this, Japan is the most important economic partner for European Union. But I think especially since 2021 and since today, Indo-Pacific, the activity of China in Indo-Pacific, but also war in Ukraine will cause that European Union and Japan could in the future go much more beyond economic relations, will become more political partners, because it is, I think, common understanding between United States, Japan, and the European Union. Indo-Pacific is not a geographical concept. Indo-Pacific is very, very political concept. And they would like to underline that, okay, we have completely different vision of a world. So I fully agree with you, and I like very much your presentation, where you put this sentence that China intends to express the difference from Moscow, because I think China is aware that this situation is not good for Beijing. So it is the first thing. And the second thing, when we talk about European Union, China, and also the relations between Beijing and Moscow. Also, I would like to thank Professor Kawashima, because I think it is not so many popular opinion, and sometimes maybe we don't take into account this very seriously here in Europe, that it is a huge difference between Moscow and Beijing. You put what you underline during your presentation. It is very important for China, for Beijing. Economic development is #1. China is aware. China is aware. If we want to be great power, you are already, China is great power. But if we want to strengthen our position in IR, we must deal still with a lot of economic, social problems. So I think China is, and the leaders of China are aware. Firstly, we need to deal with this a lot of social problem. If we take into account that I think over 25% of people in China are over 65 years. So it is also, it is a big challenge. And I think China will not use military instruments to solve Taiwan problem, because China, Beijing is aware. Firstly, we need to focus on economic development. And the second thing, China is, we should remember this, China is the biggest beneficiary of globalization. And you also underlined during your presentation that China puts stress on new technology, on economic issues. And if we compare Beijing and Moscow, Moscow is only nuclear power, and the power of Moscow is based on natural resources. They don't have a real economic and they don't put stress on economic and new technology. And after these sanctions, I think the situation in Russia will be very dramatic. So I think we should take into account these two elements, because even before, when we discuss about the BRICS cooperation between Russia and China, I think we should underline that, of course, in some situation, China and Russia have a common interest, and you put during this presentation, but I think we should put more stress on differences between Moscow and Beijing. So thank you very much, and it was a great pleasure to listen to you, and also thank you very much all discussants for all questions, because
thank you, Professor.
We put so many questions, answers, that I think it will be inspiration for next meeting, for next seminar. Thank you very much.
Now I would like just to give the floor for the final summary to Ambassador Miyajima. Also, because, you know, we are analyzing, of course, the situation in a much wider scale. Now we are focusing on Ukraine because it's a war happening there, but the political scientists very much connect this situation also with all the threats in the Pacific. And the question would be, what will happen next? Is this really a first step into, you know, a much larger problem, much larger conflict, or even, you know, a world war? And how Japan is seeing the future development. Ambassador, please.
Thank you, Professor. Thank you, Professor Kawashima, for very, very wide-ranging, stimulating presentations. And I'm very impressed with the very active discussion today. And as we are quite aware that the current situation is serious and getting more serious just in front of us. But I really do hope that that will just not, how can I say that, Europe should not be just preoccupation for everybody. And then I really do hope that there will be a good attention to be paid to what's happening in Indo-Pacific, because of the importance of China, the importance of the region, and also the importance of important implication for the global governance that after this terrible kind of situation. And so really count on the people who are participating today for the further discussions. But just adding one thing that, well, I think I also totally agreed with Professor Kawashima said that China will be very, very cautious and then observing the situations, and then they try to take whatever the benefit that they can take. But I think we really need to not only just watch and follow the words, but also the deeds. That we know that after the Crimea invasion, annexation, the trade between China and Russia jumped because of the sanction measures. China was kind of the strategic cushion. This time again, in Beijing, the statement, there's agreement, there'll be a really kind of expanding the economic ties between two countries. So we have to see that how China is going to do that, to play as a kind of, again, strategic cushion to evade kind of the sanctions imposed by the world against Russia or not. So what I'm just trying to say is that whatever happening in Europe has an immediate impact on Asia. So we really do need to watch globally. And Japan is a very, very important partner in that respect, to work together with Poland, EU, and the United States. So let's continue the dialogue, and looking forward to see Professor Kawashima in person in Warsaw. Thank you.
Thank you very much, all the participants. Thank you, Professor Kawashima and Professor Zajączkowski, for your contributions. And thank you, Ambassador Miyajima, to work with us on this webinar. And thank you all for questions. And I just hope we will have many more of these discussions between Europe and Asia, because I think the situation in Ukraine is really changing the whole perception of international affairs, and the situation evolves quicker than we are able to analyze it. But that is why we need really to focus on the conclusions, what can come out of this conflict we are having. Thank you very much, Małgorzata Bonikowska, the Center for International Relations. See you soon.